So Nick, this is your fourth book, The Sugar Man.
It's my fourth book, yeah.
Yeah, really enjoyed it, man. I breezed through it.
Delighted.
Did I ever tell you about when I worked at Waterstones? Not with you. It was the next branch I worked at. This guy got, I think it might have got disciplinary because he, on every recommend card, he wrote an unputdownable page turner and just put it on like 25 books. But it was an unputdownable page turner. Right. I mean, I was just like absolutely breezing through it, man.
Delighted, man.
So you wrote 3 books, this Inspector Iwata trilogy.
Yeah.
What made you kind of do something separate from that? Did you feel like, because those books in a way feel like it felt like you could have done 1, you could have done 3,
yeah,
you could have done 7.
Yeah, sure.
Like it doesn't necessarily, or did you feel like, no, it was a trilogy and I was out?
Well, it was always sold as I mean, look, I think there are probably 2 answers. There's sort of like, it was sold as a trilogy. I pitched it as a trilogy. When I first sat down with my agent, I said, I've got a trilogy of books. The logic there being that I thought I'll be more likely to get an agent if he or she thinks that I'm serious about this and I've got a big box full of writing to go. At the time, I had 1 book in the bag, like 1 written first draft and 2 vague ideas. But I was like, yeah, it's a whole trilogy. Like it's basically already there. And so what I sold was a trilogy of stories alongside a kind of character arc. That was kind of, for me, I mean, I think I even said in that first meeting with my agent, like, I don't want him to keep on going through these sort of like fantastical situations because a man can only get shot and stabbed so many times, right?
Yeah.
He can only see so many sort of bad things. And, you know, it can't be like this like Jack Reacher thing of like just another town where
I don't want to do that Mick McCarthy quote, but it can.
Oh, it can.
but that's not what you
no.
did.
So that sort of one answer was, it was just simply pitched as a trilogy. The second part to that is, I think if it had pulled up trees commercially and sold 1 trillion copies, I think they'd have been like, give us another Inspector Iwata book, right? But it's not. I mean, there's a million reasons why, but I think it's not massively like airporty, Jack Reachery type crime fiction. There's a lot of like, you know, trauma going on internally. There's a lot of inside world as well as outside world. So when I come to the end of the trilogy, they said, Penguin said, what's the 4th book about? And I knew I wanted to write about closed societies. I'd always been interested in stuff like caste systems and stuff. Like I grew up on an estate not far from here in North London. And
like a Gosford Park type estate.
Yeah, no, not that type of like the Gosford Park downstairs type of estate. And the kids next door were Bengali, and I remember them explaining to me how the caste system worked. I would have been about 11, and I remember just being like so taken with like, so what? Your destiny is determined before you're born. That to me just seemed mad. And it was when I'd finished the 3rd book, or when I started writing the 3rd Iwata book, I knew that I had to tee up a new standalone mystery, and I didn't know where I was going to go with it, but I kind of knew that I was interested in writing about closed societies. So then late kind of 2018, 2019, I was on a big road trip through America, and I was in deep Pennsylvania, and there's a bridge, it's called a sky bridge. It used to be an old railway bridge across a valley. It got knocked down by a tornado, so it's only half of it. So it's just sort of like a visitor attraction. And I was right on the precipice of it, looking out over this sort of Appalachian valley. And I heard this language, and, you know, I speak Spanish and I speak some French because of my parents. So I've got a bit of a knack for languages. And I heard it and I thought, oh, it's German, but not. So it sort of piqued my interest. I turned around and I looked, and of course it was a group of Amish people on a day out. And then I kind of fascinated by that, sort of listening to them, and then they got on a bus and like left and went back to their little community.
Real bus with
a real bus,
engine.
Yeah. So their one wasn't particularly strict.
There's an amazing table on Wikipedia where it just lays out all these different Amish communities and whether they're allowed to use like lawnmowers and
100, like literally, like we're talking about a population of about 400,000 people, give or take. And they go back, but we're going back to like the sort of late 1600s. So if you imagine a small group of people who self-isolate, effectively go into lockdown at the time of the Renaissance, and don't leave, and speak the same language. So it's called Pennsylvania Deutsch, right? But it's essentially medieval German, right? Or like Renaissance time German, right? So it's different to German today, right? And so depending on the level of like, you know, traditionalism in each group, and some are sort of like more inward looking than others. And so I just thought, what if, looking at that group of people, obviously I did some reading and I thought, well, what if somebody from the inside went outside and died? Then that would mean a detective from the outside would have to go inside and investigate. And that's there kind of where, in a kind of Gosfordy Parky way, that was kind of where that novel came from.
So when you first told me about it, did I get the wrong end of the stick? I thought it was going to be a serial killer movie where, I thought it was going to be a serial killer book, right? In a kind of classic, not particularly true to real life, I suppose, of like a serial killer who has like a trademark. And this serial killer would leave like honey around the victim's lips. And I imagined a string of women who he'd done that to.
Yeah, right.
Like, and it was going to be like, I don't know, I'd imagined it all being in this Amish community.
Right.
That's not what it was at all, really. Like,
no.
It's the Amish community is like an element of the plot.
Yeah.
And it's not your way into the plot either. Doesn't really come up until...
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess they first turn up in probably the second chapter.
Well, I mean, you see them in the background. Yeah, I think you see them in the prologue in the background, or they're mentioned. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's not until like chapter 7 or 8 until you actually
get the wrong end of the stick there.
No, because an earlier draft was more like that.
Yeah,
an earlier draft was more like that. I essentially, I think I maybe even pitched it originally as more serial killer-y. Without my heart massively being into that. Essentially, what I found more interesting is the idea of the mythos of a serial killer in small town America. So the willingness to fear the wolf type thing, right?
Yeah.
So a young girl, a 16-year-old girl, goes missing in 1998, and she's found dead 4 days later with some sugar granules over her face and her lips. Is this a trademark of the killer? Is he the sugar man? Did this just happen in the middle of a fight and her shopping went everywhere? Right. We don't really know. So it's kind of I mean, it's not ever telling you this is what's happening, which is kind of the point. It's sort of like, do people want to believe in him? Do people want to go fear the beast? Yeah. Or do we look at this practically and say we've got no evidence to show that it's the same person? Because when we rejoin the plot in the present, 2015 is when the present day is in the book, another body is found. And then the question is the sugar man back? Which is what gets slapped on the front cover of the book in order to beef up those kind of serial killer-y elements, which is what you've got to do within genre fiction. But it's not where I think the heart of the writing lies for me as the writer.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like, that all comes across that it is like, it's like a boogeyman.
That's the word, man.
These things linked when it's like,
or as they say in Spain, hombre del saco, which means sack man, which is somehow creepy. The idea of a man putting a sack over his head. Oh
wow!
Yeah.
You were trying to find was it a French title for it?
Well,
or was it Spanish?
Yeah, so recently...
El hombre de
azúcar, yeah. It doesn't... Yeah, l'homme de sucre doesn't really... Yeah, it didn't really work. I actually recently asked... So we came up with a replacement title, because the sugar man... In English, you can say Spider-Man, Batman, and sort of, linguistically, we know what's happening, right? It's like concept man. Yeah. In Spanish, it doesn't really it sort of clunks a lot more.
Yeah. Do you know this is just on that kind of linguistic point. Do you know the French film Black Girl? Senegalese.
Oh,
French film.
Yeah.
Like kind of an early film by an African filmmaker. Yeah. What is about 68? Really good. And in French, it's called, how do you say, it's like the girl... How would you say the black girl in French?
Like la fille noire.
Yeah, it's like la fille noire de ...
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So the black English, girl
you can't have like ... apostrophe s black girl, can you? So you just have to lose that.
Yeah, totally.
You have to just go to a different direction.
Yeah. Well, so and funnily enough, that there are entire like posts about this, right? So like, for example, I mean, I don't know, Weekend at Bernie's, right? So for your listeners who haven't seen that film, right? Essentially, two guys want to go to like a tropical island or whatever, but it's like their uncle, right? He's their ticket to that, but he's dead. So what they do is they just sort of take his corpse on the plane and then just pretend he's alive. Put some sunglasses on him, right? And say, right, okay, so Weekend at Bernie's, right? So say what you see, Gareth, right? Okay. In Spanish, right, it's un tío muy vivo, which means, right, tío means uncle. Yeah, very good. But it also kind of means like bloke. So if I like in here we say like mate, right? But like in Spain you say uncle, and it could be to your mate. You could,
I see.
Right? Even though your uncle literally would be tío. So it means and vivo is live, but it also sort of means a bit lively. So it's like, you know, an uncle who's very alive.
Yeah.
Right, literal, but also an uncle who's a bit sort of tasty. So it's working on 2 levels. So that's a good example of them, right? Most of the time, the translation is poor. So another example, like as a counterpoint, Air Force One, starring Harrison Ford, right? In Spanish, I believe it's called El Avión del Presidente, which means the president's plane. Which is like, brilliant.
If you don't know what Air Force One is, I mean, that is what it is.
Like, brilliant, you know. So there's a lot of like, you know, Greece, I think it's called Vaselina, which means like Vaseline. You're like, that's not quite like...
Wait, what is called Vaseline?
The film Grease.
Oh!
Like the musical, like... There's a lot of, you know, Die Hard is called Jungla de Cristal, right? Yeah. Crystal Jungle.
Well, in Germany, it would be The Hard, wouldn't it? So they'd have that's got a different name, isn't it? So,
yeah.
Do you know the Paolo Sorrentino film? He made a film about... it's sort of one of his lesser-known ones, I think, about Berlusconi. Oh, yeah. And it's called Loro. Right, L''ORO, which means us, right? And also gold.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't. I suppose like the gold as well. Yeah. In English, they just call it Loro. They didn't change it. You can't be messing about.
Yeah, just leave that. Yeah,
us/the gold. So have you got a title yet?
So we do. Yeah, they asked me not to reveal it though.
Nice. So have you got release dates though for?
Yeah, so in Spain it comes out in September.
Yeah.
It's out here now. Hardback, and then I can't remember when the paperback version is. So yeah, it comes out in Spain, which is nice because then, you know, like family, like my people over there on that side can read it in their language. And
you've not done the translation, I bet.
No, but I am looking at it as we speak.
Oh, great! Yeah.
And there are, you know, not to mug off the guy because, you know, all hats off, all the respect in the world, but they're not linguistically, but there are certain things that are cultural, right? Yeah. Which you don't learn, you know, on Duolingo. Like, for example, there's a line early on where Flora goes to the supermarket and the checkout girl says, "Oh, how's your mum?" You know, and so Flora says how her mum is doing. And then the checkout girl says, what about the dreamy Mr. Riddell, right? Because her dad is handsome. And it got translated to, what about the pensive Mr. Riddell? so, no, dreamy means like hot, right? But obviously the guy's gone, what the fuck, dreamy? Oh, maybe she means like... So it's that kind of thing. That's not necessarily a language thing, because in Spanish, like you say, if there's not literal, you have to go to the next best thing. It's raining cats and dogs. What? Yeah, it's raining intensely.
Yeah, you just do something else entirely.
Which brings us to John Toshak, where he said, as Real Madrid manager, it's raining cats and dogs. Yeah. No, sorry, I lie. They said, how do you react to the pressure from the media? And he said in Spanish, to me, it's like water on a duck's back. Yeah. But that idiom doesn't exist in. So like the journalists are like, what he's talking about ducks or something. I don't know why.
Funny. Oh, there was one thing on the Penguin website, right? They're very careful that it's gone through the legal team, I bet, to refer to it as an Amish-like community.
Yeah.
What's the story then?
Yeah, man. So it starts off where I was just like, you know, they're just Amish.
Yeah.
And then I was like, they are very different from the Amish. And the broad strokes are the same. You know, isolation, total devotion to God. You rise at dawn, you work the land, you go to sleep at sundown, right? And you live and you die in these norms. When you pick up a newspaper in that region, these families within these communities will announce a birth, right? And, you know, in 1984, so year I was born, 1984, the Amish population of the US was 40,000. Today it's 400,000. So, you know, they're shaggers, right? They will have their, you know... But they'll announce a birth in the newspaper and it will say, Mr. Yoda welcomed a woodcutter on Tuesday, right? And it's a woodcutter because he's a woodcutter, and so that boy will grow up and be a woodcutter. So that's the like kind of world they're living in, right? But, you know, it's a real group of people, and I just divert and do my own thing. So essentially that town where they live is fictional, just as Nectar is fictional. And I never name the state where it takes place.
Oh yeah,
I'm kind of woolly about that.
Yeah, I was trying to figure. I was like, did he mention it? And I was like thinking, I'm trying to place it.
Yeah, which is sort of intentional because it just allows me to kind of. So it's in, you know, Nectar in Katuna County. None of that exists, right? But Katuna County sounds like
the Sugar Man Nectar.
Like, exactly, right. Yeah, and so it was just basically for me not to get sued, basically to sort of say they're quasi Amish. You know what I mean? They're a branch off.
I guess it means you're not sort of culturally insensitive in a way, maybe.
I mean, look, I don't think many Amish people are going to be reading this book.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about like
knocked out in Pennsylvania.
No, funnily enough,
Pennsylvania Dutch title.
Yeah. Well, that's it. De Sucramon. But you know, whether or not they're going to be reading it, you know, and obviously they're not going to be like belling up and saying, actually, we wouldn't do this, we'd do that, because it's like, well, I know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like one of the practices that they have within this fictional community that I've made is it's actually like an exhibition where I think it was in Israel years ago, and essentially what a local artist had done, it was a woman, is in the reading of the Torah with kids, what they do is sometimes they lace a stencil of the Torah with honey, because obviously in that religion they talk about milk and honey, right? They're sort of like symbolic. So when the kid learns the word of God, they lick the honey from that stencil to like literally sort of imbibe the sweetness and the love of God, right?
Oh, wow.
And so what this artist did is she kind of put a camera underneath this. So you just had like, basically like, you know, like 20-year-old women just like licking up, right? And then there was like pictures of rabbis and stuff like that. So it's like really controversial at the time, but it's just like a really striking image. And I thought, oh, I think I want to use that. So what they do in this religion is that when they're in their version of their sort of place of worship, that when they read along to their version of the Bible, they're licking the honey out of the letters themselves. Yeah. Then, of course, it's like, well, what's in this honey and whatever else. Anyway, all of that to say, these things, this is not an Amish thing. This is the thing that I've just decided is what's happening here. Do you know what I mean? So, but it was, when you are stuck to, I'm writing about a real community, you kind of can't go off in your own direction without feeling like that's not. Do you know what I mean? You end up then it ends up like that. You know, that piece you made with that guy like cuss bad words. Do you know what I mean? You end up being that guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're right. You either fictionalize it or you don't.
Exactly.
You pick your path, don't you? Yeah, I really enjoyed it, man.
I'm delighted, man.
Good work,
really
good
delighted.
Work, really like masterfully done as always.
Thank you, man. And yeah, for me, it's sort of like I say, so it was a 4-book deal with Penguin. So now I've kind of got to go off and sing for my supper. And I've written a new book set in Spain, and it's essentially like writing in English about Spain. I've decided that's mine, so like that's what I'm going to try and sort of colonize. Which fitting, you know, when we talk about Spain, you know, that's mine, that belongs to me now.
Spain and England, the big two.
The big
very
two.
Much the Messi and Ronaldo.
Yeah, I mean. It is the sort of I mean, and you know, like the Euro final, isn't it? That's the That's, I mean, you know, the two big the sort of Lamine Yamal versus Bukayo Saka, you know.
Totally.
So there we are, man. So I'm really pleased you liked it, man. It was many years of work to get it out, because it's a hard divorce from a character you followed across 3 books for years.
Yeah.
To then do a new thing is fucking really difficult.
Yeah.
You assume it's easy, and then you start realizing, like, oh no, that's Inspector Iwata's voice.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear him anymore. I'm trying to hear this new person. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm glad that, and you would hope that as you write, people start to like your books more, because you should be getting better, not worse. Do you know what I mean?
You are, man. You are.
Appreciate that, man.